Casey Neistat made a video earlier today that was talking about the pressures of being a YouTuber, the pressures of being in front of people all the time, and how social media and other aspects of that life can be really, really draining and pressure-packed. Then Roberto Blake made a response to that video, and both of them were talking about this young lady named Elle Mills, who's 19 years old, and basically in 6 months went from 0 to 1.2 million subscribers on YouTube, doing her thing. But she released a video recently that was called Burnt Out at 19, where she chronicled some of the struggles that she's had with always being on, always having to create content, always having to do what she does, and how it's isolating, and how it's just the pressure of it really takes a toll on you. And her video was really incredible, very frightening. And I'm glad that in the video she said she's getting help that she needs. But I'm 46 years old. I started out singing when I was like 3 or 4 years old. I was like the family trained seal. I could sing songs from memory at that time. That I was in my first children's choir at 8 years old. And then from there I was, band, show choir, like everything that you could do that was musical in a young person's life, I did it. And I've learned to play over the years every instrument that's related to rock and roll. I can at least get by on. But my main thing was singing. And so when I was 20 years old, we moved to New York City. I'd been in bands since I was 14. So I wanted to make it as a musician, as a songwriter. And for the next 11 years, I very seriously spent all of my time busting my ass, trying to get there, trying to get noticed in a world where it's not so easy to get noticed. But the band ultimately ended up getting the right kinds of gigs, getting in front of people that needed to see us if we were ever going to have a shot. And we did have a couple of opportunities that didn't ultimately work out, but we got to travel. We made 2 records. We did all kinds of different stuff. After my daughter was born, I knew at that moment that it was time to make a change and just like rework the way music looked in my life. I didn't know how to do that. I was 33 years old, and my life dream had just sort of gone away in front of me. It turned into something different. And I just wasn't in a good place. Really depressed, working at the newspaper that I delivered when I was a kid. I'd get home at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning after putting the paper to bed, and I would drink a couple of 40s and sort of just drink myself to sleep, watching TV. So over the course of that time, like, I just didn't know where creativity was going to exist in my life. I applied to 2 programs. I applied to West Virginia's program, and I applied to the Iowa Writers Workshop. If you don't know what the Iowa Writers Workshop is, it is basically 1,500 people apply each year, give or take some, to get into the fiction program, which takes 25 people. It's more difficult to get into the Iowa Writers Workshop than it is to get into Harvard Law School. Anyway, I didn't think I had any shot to get in there, but it was something I'd promised myself I did. If I went back to school for writing, then I was going to apply there. I had friends who gone there. Anyway, ultimately, I ended up getting into Iowa, and I spent 2 years there. I wrote a novel, and I wrote about 15 short stories, and I told myself I was going to bust my ass, and I did. Every day I wrote, every single day, and it was great experience for me. It did a lot for me. It took away the fear of the page. It took away all this stuff, and it taught me to be not just a creative person, but it also taught me to be taught me to work. In Iowa, I was 33, 34 years old. I started drinking even more. I didn't see it becoming a problem. I mean, I guess in my darkest moments, I would have understood. I would have been able to really admit to myself that it was becoming a problem. But in 2012, I just decided that I had to quit on one day. One particular day, I was like, I had an appointment with a psychiatrist. I was like, this is the day I'm going to say I need to quit and I need help. And that was the last day that I drank. It was June 15th, 2012. Drinking was helping me mask a lot of problems that I didn't really that I didn't really want to, or maybe I wasn't able to recognize in the first place. And anxiety and depression, I had been able to tamp them down with alcohol. I basically fell to pieces. Like the first year of not drinking was probably the worst year of my life, because I didn't have any buffer anymore. I felt like somebody had ripped off my skin and I was just a totally exposed nerve. Now, you're wondering, like, how does this get back to YouTube and all that stuff? It does. Along the way, I started doing these YouTube videos, and at first I didn't really do them with any anticipation that it would be anything other than something that I did to waste my time, or as a hobby to keep myself from going insane or whatever. And I didn't think anybody would really watch. And then I made some gaming headset videos and people started watching. And then I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. It's everything that I like to do. It's, recording, it's being in front of people. It's all kinds of different things that have been a part of my life for a long time. So I decided to keep doing it. It was satisfying to me, and it remains satisfying to me to this day. In September of last year, all of a sudden people started watching my videos a lot more. I made a couple of videos that sort of popped out over the radar, and all of a sudden I went from having 3,000 or 4,000 subscribers to, by the end of 2017, having like 30 something thousand, and at this point I have 58,000 something, which is really unbelievable to me. And I guess I wanted to get around to this because this is where the experience that I had before as a writer, as a musician, became valuable to me in this YouTube situation. Basically, I had been a creative professional before, and I knew what it took to do the work. I knew what you had to sacrifice. I knew what all that stuff was. And the last 9 months, I have basically been doing YouTube 6 days a week, as often as I can, and just trying to build. I will say this, though, and this is where the Elle Mills video kind of struck me. There's something about putting yourself in the position of being in front of the camera, being in front of the audience, being in front of whatever, that is totally isolating. You become something to other people, but nothing like that to yourself. The thing that's been difficult for me as YouTube has continued to grow and grow and grow for me has been, I made the decision to be a husband and a father because I fell in love, and then I fell in love again. And it's painful to think that what I'm doing now and how I have to do it in order to keep the wheels rolling has somewhat alienated me from my family. I have a full-time job, a job that I really like, but for the past 9 months, I have been working 2 full-time jobs, and it's been really difficult. I've always wanted to be someone making this connection. Like I can reach out over the distance of the internet, over the distance of time, and have a connection with another human being. I find myself in this position of listening to Casey, listening to Roberto, listening to Elle Mills, and realizing like I have been to that place so many times in my life. YouTube is very pressure packed because everybody knows the algorithm of YouTube wants you to publish videos, as every day if possible, if you want to keep in front of people. I like making these videos, and I like the interaction that I have with the folks that I interact with. I don't get upset at the haters. Sometimes the amount of hate can become overwhelming, but I honestly think, if what I'm saying is making people respond that passionately, pro or con, then I'm doing something right. None of that should keep you from spending time with your family, figuring out ways to be healthy in your creative lifestyle, as well as continuing to do the work that you know you need to do. And if you're struggling with that, I urge you to stop and talk to somebody. There's something inherently unforgiving about putting yourself in the position to be something more than normal. And most people who put themselves in that position feel like they had no choice whatsoever. But if you're one of those people who felt like you had no choice and you had to put yourself into that position, the good and the bad that comes with it can be very dangerous. I know going into it that it's going to beat the shit out of you. It's beat the shit out of me numerous times over. At my darkest moments, when I thought, I have no idea where to go next, I have no idea how I'm going to get through this, I've failed, I've always come back to creativity as a way to get out of it. And I hope that that's what happens for Elle Mills, and I hope that that's what happens for anybody who's having that struggle. Even though it's really isolating, you are not alone. You have people around you that love you. It may seem like everything is coming down on you at once. Just allow yourself to be a person as well as a personality. And I can't say that it's going to get better. I can't say that it gets easier. I can't say that it gets better. You work harder. The more success you have, the more you have to work hard to continue the success. And if you want that success, for whatever reason, you have to keep working. There's something in me that has to come out. And I have accepted that, which means that I've accepted a certain amount of misery in my life in order to do that. But it's worth it because I would be half of the person that I am right now if I wasn't doing it. That's my reaction to all this. The video is sitting at 25 minutes right now. No, 26. I guess I have to cut some of this out in order to make it digestible on YouTube. But thanks so much for sticking with me. If you have stuck with me, to everybody out there who's creating and struggling and still creating after difficulties, you're not alone. Take a deep breath and find a way to see tomorrow.